I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that.
Deep. No. Me.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
I know. Deep breath. I want to hear deep breaths. Like that. One more. Come on. No. You're clearing up. Come on.
I shot him.
Come on. It's okay.
He was coming right at me.
I got you.
I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that.
That raw grief you just heard, a human being, trained and armed, breaking apart because of what they just had to do. People online were divided when that clip went viral. One commenter named Sanji Williams wrote, "This shows that not all police officers are bad. I can't imagine having to live with taking a person's life, rather justified or not." Another, going by the name Tana, shared something deeply personal. Her own brother was on the force for 10 years before he had to take a life in the line of duty. He was terminated shortly after. He developed PTSD. He never worked again. And then someone named Tim Warnke cut through it all with a different reading. The reason he is crying most likely is, he's worried about being charged for murder. The internet never agrees. But it always reacts. Because what happens when a cop cries after shooting someone? What happens when a cop doesn't? What happens when the cop who doesn't cry is also the cop who decides, in an instant, who is the hero and who is the criminal? And what happens when she gets it catastrophically, irreversibly wrong? That's the story we're telling today. Stick with me. This one changes how you think about justice. Detective Marcus Johnson pulled into the parking lot beside Sunridge Beach Boardwalk at exactly 4:47 p.m. on a warm Thursday afternoon with one simple mission: grab snacks, pick up his daughter's favorite flavored popcorn from the corner vendor, and be home within 30 minutes to help his wife prep for their anniversary dinner. He was 38 years old. 11 years on the Metro Police Department. He'd worked his way up from patrol officer to homicide detective, earning commendations for solving some of the city's most difficult murder cases, including 3 that had gone cold for years before he cracked them. He had a 94% case closure rate, the highest in his division. He had been nominated for Detective of the Year twice. He had received the Medal of Valor for rescuing 2 children from a burning building while off duty. He had been recognized by the mayor, the governor, and 3 separate police chiefs. His captain, Robert Williams, considered him a future captain himself. That day, Johnson was off duty. It was his first day off in 12 days after closing a particularly brutal double homicide case that had taken 3 months to solve. He walked the sun-bleached boardwalk in khaki shorts, a navy blue polo, and comfortable sneakers. His detective shield and service weapon were locked in his car's glove compartment because he wasn't working and didn't want the weight of his duty belt on his day off. He grabbed a paper bag of flavored popcorn. Checked his wife's text list. Lemonade from the corner stand. Sunscreen for their daughter. A beach toy she'd been asking for all week. He smiled and headed along the boardwalk, completely unaware that in less than 4 minutes, his life would be turned upside down, and his faith in the justice system he'd served for over a decade would be shattered. The boardwalk was moderately busy with the late afternoon crowd. Maybe 60 or 70 beachgoers. Children near the water. Families on rented chairs. Dogs. Ice cream. The ordinary soundtrack of an ordinary afternoon. Then, the distinct crack of a semi-automatic handgun. Johnson's body went into tactical mode before his conscious mind even processed what was happening. He dropped into a crouch behind a vendor cart. His hand reached instinctively for a service weapon that wasn't there. One shot. Screaming. A .45 caliber handgun. Active shooter. He had no weapon, no radio, no backup. But he had 11 years of training and experience, and people were screaming for help. Johnson moved low and fast, using vendor stalls as cover. As he rounded the corner near the bait shop, he saw it, a white male in his mid-20s, black tactical vest over a gray t-shirt, standing near the pier entrance holding a .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun. Blood spattered the wooden planks near the souvenir kiosk. An elderly man lay motionless on the ground, shot in the chest. Other beachgoers huddled behind benches and stall counters, some screaming, others frozen in silent terror. The gunman's voice rang out, loud and unhinged. "This is for everyone who ignored me. Everyone who laughed. You're all going to pay attention now." He raised the weapon toward a young mother who was shielding two small children behind her body. Johnson didn't hesitate. He assessed the tactical situation in 2 seconds. The shooter's stance was amateur, emotional, untrained. His attention was fixed forward on his next target. He wasn't scanning his flanks. Distance, approximately 35 feet. No weapon. But Johnson had the element of surprise and years of hand-to-hand combat training. He moved. Full sprint. Closed the distance with explosive speed. The shooter's head started to turn, but Johnson was already on him. He grabbed the shooter's gun wrist with both hands, executing a perfect weapon retention technique, twisting the wrist violently inward while simultaneously driving his shoulder into the shooter's chest with the force of a linebacker. The gun discharged once into the air. He swept the shooter's legs, drove him face first into the sun-warmed wooden planks. In one continuous motion, wrenched the gun free with a joint lock that made the man scream in pain. Johnson immediately cleared the weapon, ejecting the magazine, racking the slide to remove the chambered round, rendering it safe. He tucked the gun into his waistband at the small of his back and drove his knee into the shooter's spine, pulling both arms behind the man's back in a control hold that made escape impossible. The entire sequence, from Johnson's first movement to the shooter being completely neutralized, took less than 5 seconds. "I'm a police detective," Johnson shouted to the terrified beachgoers. "Someone call 911. Tell them officer needs assistance. Active shooter down. 1 civilian victim shot. We need paramedics immediately." A woman near the railing was already on the phone. "The police are already on the way," she called back. "I called when I heard the first shot." A teenage boardwalk employee named Tyler had pulled out his phone and was recording everything, live streaming to his 250,000 TikTok followers. The videos showed Johnson's heroic takedown, his professional weapon disarming, his calm control of the situation. The comments were already flooding in. Within minutes, that video would be seen by millions. And in less than 2 minutes, the sound of sirens filled the beach parking lot. 2 patrol officers burst through the pier gate with their weapons drawn. Officer Rachel Peton in front, a white woman in her late 30s, 12 years on the force. And right behind her, Officer David Chin, an Asian American officer in his early 30s, 7 years of experience, who had always looked up to Peton as a mentor. Peton's eyes swept the scene and locked onto a single image: a black man in civilian clothes pinning a white man to the boardwalk, a gun clearly visible tucked into the black man's waistband, blood on the wooden planks, an elderly victim down, chaos everywhere. Peton's brain processed this through 12 years of ingrained bias and prejudice, and her conclusion was immediate and certain. The black man was the shooter. The white man on the ground was a victim fighting back. "Drop the weapon!" Peton shouted, her service weapon aimed directly at Johnson's center mass. "Get your hands where I can see them now." Johnson looked up at her, still maintaining his control hold on the actual shooter beneath him. "Officer Peton," he said, recognizing her from the department even though they'd never worked together. "I'm Detective Marcus Johnson, Homicide Division, Badge 4782. This man is the active shooter. I disarmed him and I'm holding him for you. The weapon in my waistband is his gun. I cleared it and secured it." The beachgoers erupted immediately. "He saved us!" the young mother screamed, still clutching her children. "That detective stopped the shooting. The white guy is the shooter. He's a hero. Check his badge." Peton's face twisted with irritation and certainty. "Everyone be quiet. I'll handle this." She turned to Johnson. "I don't care what you say you are. Get your hands off that weapon and put them on your head now. Officer Chin stepped forward, his voice urgent. Rachel, maybe we should let him show us his badge. Patton's jaw set hard. Don't question my authority. Kyle Hicks, the actual shooter, saw exactly what was happening. He touched his ribs gingerly and said, Officers, thank you for stopping him. Can I go now? I think he cracked my ribs. I need to get to a hospital. Chin tried again. Rachel, we need to take his statement first. We need to review the boardwalk security footage. We need to verify everything before anyone leaves this scene. Patton's face flushed with anger at being questioned by her junior partner. Officer Chin, I've been doing this job for 12 years. I know what I'm seeing. But Rachel, Chin tried once more, his voice urgent. His story matches all the witnesses. We should at least check his wallet before we... That's enough. Patton snapped. You want to question my judgment? You've been on the force for 7 years. I've seen hundreds of these situations. Johnson's voice cut through the tension. Officer Patton, you are making the worst mistake of your career. That man is an active shooter who just attempted mass murder. My credentials are in my back right pocket. My service weapon is locked in my car in the beach parking lot. My captain is Robert Williams. Call him. Check my ID. Review the boardwalk security cameras. But for God's sake, do not let that man walk off this pier. Patton turned to Hicks. Sir, you're free to go. We'll need a statement from you later, but you can seek medical attention first. Here's my card. Hicks took the card, his hands that had been shaking with murderous intent 10 minutes ago, about to kill a mother and her children, now steady with relief and disbelief. He walked off the boardwalk before they could change their minds, his tactical vest still visible to everyone watching. Chin made one last desperate attempt. Rachel, please, just let me pull the boardwalk security footage. It'll take 2 minutes. Officer Chin, if you question my authority one more time on this scene, I will have you written up for insubordination and you'll be writing a desk for the next year. Do you understand me? Chin's mouth closed. Kyle Hendricks, wanted by the FBI for posting manifestos threatening mass violence, a disturbed individual who had just shot an elderly man in cold blood and was seconds away from killing a mother and 2 children on a sunny beach boardwalk, walked free. Because Officer Rachel Patton's racism was stronger than her duty to verify the facts. Marcus Johnson was forced into the back of a patrol car and driven to the Central Police Station, the same building where he worked, where his desk sat in the homicide division on the 3rd floor, where his captain's office overlooked the street, where his colleagues and friends would be coming and going on shift changes. He demanded to speak to Captain Williams. He demanded to call the union rep. He told them he was a detective in their own department. He told them to check the boardwalk security footage. He told them to verify his credentials. Nobody listened. The intake officers didn't recognize him out of his usual suit and tie. They processed him like any other criminal, took his belongings, photographed him, fingerprinted him, and threw him into holding cell number 6. The same holding cells he'd walked past hundreds of times while escorting suspects he'd arrested for murder. Johnson sat on the metal bench and stared at the concrete wall, knowing that somewhere Kyle Hendricks was free, likely planning his next attack. 7 hours. In his own building. A decorated detective in a concrete cell while a domestic terrorist planned a massacre. And this is the part that makes you think of that body cam audio we played at the top of the video. That officer sobbing, saying, "I didn't want to do that." Commenters debated whether the tears were real. But here's the thing, Marcus Johnson didn't cry. He sat in silence on that metal bench, and he thought about everything he was going to do when he got out of there. Not just for himself, but for everyone who comes after. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments. We love seeing where you're tuning in from. And if you believe stopping a mass shooting shouldn't get you arrested when you're black, like this video and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps us keep bringing stories like this one to light. While Johnson sat in that cell, Tyler's live stream was going nuclear. Within 30 minutes, it had 3 million views. The Boardwalk's security team saw it trending, pulled their own footage, and posted it publicly. High-definition video from 6 angles showing the entire incident. Kyle Hendricks entering the Boardwalk, shooting Mr. Patterson without provocation, raising the gun toward the mother and children, and then Marcus Johnson sprinting in from the arcade section, executing a perfect tactical takedown. Disarming Hendricks with professional precision, clearing the weapon, holding him for police. Then, Officer Patton arriving, immediately pointing her weapon at Johnson, and arresting the wrong man while witnesses screamed the truth. The caption read, "Full security footage from our boardwalk. Detective Marcus Johnson is a hero who saved countless lives. The police have arrested the wrong man." Within 3 hours, 8 million views. Within 6 hours, national news. Headlines read, "Off-duty detective arrested after stopping beach boardwalk mass shooting while actual shooter goes free." And, "Hero detective handcuffed while active shooter walks. Witnesses say racism to blame." The videos reached Captain Robert Williams's desk at exactly 6 hours and 23 minutes after Johnson's arrest. Williams recognized his best detective immediately. His jaw clenched tighter with every second. He picked up his phone and called the police chief. "Chief, this is Captain Williams from Homicide. We have a catastrophic situation. Detective Marcus Johnson, one of my best officers, was arrested 6 hours ago after stopping an active shooter at Sunridge Beach Boardwalk. The arresting officer refused to check his credentials, refused to review security footage, and released the actual shooter. Johnson has been sitting in our holding cells for over 6 hours while the real terrorist is in the wind. This is all on video. Millions of views. National news. We need to fix this immediately." Chief Patricia Hernandez's blood went cold. "Get him out of that cell immediately. I'm on my way." Williams stormed down to the holding area. The desk sergeant pulled up the paperwork and his face went pale when he read the name. "Sir, that's the suspect from the Sunridge Beach shooting. Officer Patton brought him in for that suspect," Williams said, his voice loud enough for the entire booking area to hear. "Is Detective Marcus Johnson from my division. He stopped an active shooter and saved lives, and you people threw him in a cell for 6 hours. Open it now." The cell door buzzed open. Johnson walked out. Face calm. Eyes showing exhaustion and anger that cut to the bone. He looked at Captain Williams, and for a moment neither man spoke. "Marcus," Williams said quietly, "I'm sorry. This should never have happened." "Captain," Johnson replied, his voice controlled but edged with something hard and final. "I stopped a mass shooting on a public beach. I disarmed an active shooter who had already shot 1 man and was about to kill a mother and 2 children. Officer Patton saw me holding him down and decided I must be the criminal. She never checked my badge. She never reviewed the boardwalk security footage. She never called you to verify my identity. She believed the shooter's lie without question. And she let him walk free while I sat in that cell for over 6 hours telling everyone who would listen that they had the wrong man. No one listened, because they looked at me and saw a criminal instead of a detective." Civil rights attorney Michael Torres took Marcus Johnson's case within 3 hours of his release and filed a federal civil rights lawsuit seeking $25 million in damages. But Torres also subpoenaed Patton's entire 12-year career record, and what he found made the case much bigger than a single wrongful arrest. Patton had 21 excessive force complaints on file. 18 came from black or Hispanic suspects. She had 19 wrongful arrest complaints. 16 were filed by minorities. Every single complaint had been dismissed or resulted in nothing more than a written warning, promptly ignored. Over the past 5 years, 47% of her arrests of black suspects were later dismissed due to lack of evidence or procedural errors. The number for white suspects was 9%. And then there was Kyle Hendricks's background. He wasn't just a random shooter. He had been investigated by the FBI for posting manifestos threatening mass violence. Flagged by the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit as a potential domestic terrorist. He'd purchased 5 firearms in the past 6 months, all flagged by the ATF. His social media was filled with plans about making people pay attention. The FBI had been monitoring him for months, and Officer Rachel Peton had looked directly at him and handed him his freedom. 4 days after Johnson's release, Hendricks was finally captured by FBI tactical teams after a standoff at a motel 200 miles away. In his room, 3 more firearms, 2,000 rounds of ammunition, body armor, and detailed plans for attacking a crowded shopping mall during the holiday season. The FBI estimated the casualty count could have exceeded 50 people. During interrogation, Hendricks said something that stopped investigators cold. "I shot someone and the cops let me go. I knew I was meant to do this. They couldn't stop me." Peton's criminal trial began 5 months later and lasted 4 weeks. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: 6 angles of boardwalk security footage, body camera audio of Chin begging Peton to verify Johnson's credentials, testimony from all 12 witnesses, Johnson's wallet with his detective shield that Peton had refused to examine, and Peton's 12-year history of racial bias complaints. The defense argued split-second judgment call in a high-pressure situation. The prosecution destroyed that argument by playing the body camera audio, Chin giving Peton multiple opportunities to verify the truth. "Rachel, maybe we should let him show us his badge. We need to check the security footage. Rachel, please, everyone is saying the same thing." And Peton's responses: "I'll handle it. Don't question my authority. I know what I'm seeing." Kyle Hendricks himself testified from federal prison. "I knew she wanted to believe it," he said with disturbing clarity. "She looked at him, and she looked at me, and I could see in her eyes that she'd already decided the black guy was guilty. So I played into it, and it worked. She let me go." The jury deliberated for 9 hours. Guilty on all charges: false arrest of a police officer, official misconduct, obstruction of justice, civil rights violations, and aiding and abetting a domestic terrorist. At sentencing, the judge said, "Officer Peton, you were given a badge in the public's trust to serve and protect all citizens equally. Instead, you allowed your racial prejudice to dictate your actions in the worst possible way. You arrested a decorated detective who had just saved innocent lives. You freed a domestic terrorist who went on to plan a mass casualty attack that could have killed dozens. Your racism endangered the community, betrayed the badge you wore, and destroyed the public's faith in law enforcement." He paused, looked directly at her. "I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years. Peton was led away in handcuffs. At 39 years old, she would be 59 at her earliest possible release. Her husband had already filed for divorce. Her teenage son refused to speak to her. She'd lost her pension, her benefits, and her freedom. The city settled Marcus Johnson's federal lawsuit for the full $25 million, the largest wrongful arrest payout in the state's history. As part of the agreement, the city was required to implement sweeping reforms: mandatory implicit bias training, body cameras that couldn't be turned off during any law enforcement interaction, an independent civilian oversight board, immediate termination for officers with documented patterns of racial bias, and quarterly public reports on arrest statistics broken down by race and outcome. Police Chief Patricia Hernandez resigned in disgrace. Internal Affairs found 53 officers with complaint patterns similar to Peton's. 34 were terminated. 19 placed on probation with mandatory counseling. Officer David Chin, who had begged his partner to verify the facts, was promoted to sergeant and given formal accommodation for his conduct. He became a leading voice for police reform within the department. Kyle Hendricks was convicted on federal domestic terrorism charges and sentenced to life in federal prison without possibility of parole. The federal judge specifically noted that Hendricks should have been arrested at the boardwalk, and that Peton's failure to do her job had directly enabled him to plan an attack that could have killed over 50 people. Mr. Patterson, the elderly victim, survived after 3 surgeries. He received a $2 million settlement and appeared publicly to thank Johnson for stopping the shooter before more lives were taken. Marcus Johnson returned to active duty and was promoted to lieutenant. He used $15 million of his settlement to establish the Shield of Justice Foundation, a nonprofit providing legal assistance to victims of police misconduct and wrongful arrests, with a special focus on minority communities. The foundation helped over 500 people in its first 5 years. He became a national speaker on police accountability and implicit bias. He testified before congressional committees and helped shape federal legislation, the Law Enforcement Accountability Act. 7 years after his wrongful arrest, Lieutenant Marcus Johnson was promoted to head the entire homicide division, recommended personally by Captain Williams as his successor. Now, think back to that bodycam audio we played at the very beginning of this video. A real officer. Sobbing. "I didn't want to do that. I don't want to do that." People online argued about whether those tears were real. One commenter wrote that most cops are just doing a job, that the aftermath of deadly force, especially face-to-face, is something they carry forever. Another shared her brother's story: 10 years on the force, had to take a life, developed PTSD, never worked again, still carrying it 6 years later. Another said simply, "Some officers have a heart too. Prayers for her." And someone else wrote, "If it stops bothering you to take a life, then you are the one who needs to change careers." That's the tension at the center of all of this. Because the question isn't whether police officers are human. They are. The bodycam proves it. The question is what they do with that humanity, whether it extends equally to every person they encounter, regardless of the color of their skin. Marcus Johnson was one of the most decorated officers in his department's history. He stopped a mass shooting with his bare hands. He had his badge in his back pocket. 12 witnesses screamed the truth. His partner begged for 2 minutes to verify the facts. Security cameras had every second of it on tape. And still, none of that was enough to override what Officer Rachel Peton saw when she looked at him. That's not a one-person problem. That's a system problem. And the only way system problems get fixed is when they can no longer be ignored, when they're documented, proven, and prosecuted. Accountability isn't revenge. It's the only thing that changes anything. If this story proved to you that even decorated detectives can be victims of racial profiling, share it with everyone who needs to understand that racism in policing destroys trust, endangers communities, and must be confronted with accountability and real consequences. What reforms would prevent officers from arresting based on bias instead of facts? Drop your ideas in the comments below. And if you believe heroes deserve justice regardless of their skin color, subscribe. Because we're exposing more stories where courage meets injustice, and fighting back creates change that saves lives and transforms broken systems forever.